Okay, hello everyone, welcome to this new week. I hope you have a nice weekend. In this week, we plan to continue to talk about the database fundamentals. And so I checked the slides. We still have so many pages of the slide left in the fundamental this section. And we plan to finish this section within this week, and we may also need to take some classes for the next week as well, so we can cover the materials left. So the main topics we need to discuss in the following slides in the fundamental this section covers both relational algebra as well as SQL. It can provide you with some basic information about queries we can design, implement, and execute for handling database systems. So the relational algebra is like a theoretical design of the language we can use for the queries, and SQL we plan to talk about is more like an implementation of the practical language we can handle the database systems in the real world. So we will be very fast in going over these two sections for the database fundamentals, so we can move to the data storage and the implementations for the following weeks. So it's also a good time for you to practice SQL as well if you forget how to do this. And you can also go over the basic materials in the textbook about these sections we have covered already. Okay, so this is about the plan for this week and the following week. And we also have a reminder for you. We have a deadline this week, which will be about the paper 1 summary report. And we have released the paper 1 already. I also sent you a reminder email in the last week, right, to talk about the format of the summary to be submitted, which will be in one single PDF document to be uploaded to the Canvas system. And the deadline will be by the Friday this week, by the midnight EST. So don't forget this deadline. The deadline will be firm and fixed. No extension will be granted for no matter what kind of problem or reason you may have. And please start to read the paper 1 and write the report as early as possible, so you don't need to rush at the very end. Okay, so this is about paper 1. As to the project, we have deadline for the project stage 1 report in last week already, and I think it's a good time for you to talk about with your teammates to decide the project or the specific problem you plan to do for the project. So first of all, you need to discuss to confirm the flavors of the project you plan to do, either about research or about the implementations. So for the research, you need to decide the problem or the specific problem you plan to do, and then you can find some related papers and read them, and then you can design and propose your own methods to solve the problem as well. And of course, you also need to do the experiments with your teammates to get some results based on experiments, so you can report whether your method is good or not. This is for the research project. If you're working on some implementation project, you also need to decide a specific problem you plan to work on, right? And you can find some papers published by the top tier conferences matching your problem you plan to work on. And you can read them and also decide the method or the paper you plan to implement and based on the descriptions of the paper. So the first thing you need to discuss with your teammates is a specific problem as well as specific papers you plan to implement for your project if you are working on the implementation project. And I also received an email from students. They say they find some papers from some very good conferences. However, the conference names they provide me are very not famous. I don't even know these conferences. So please find a paper from a top tier conference instead. I remember we have shown a list of top tier conferences already, right? For both database, we have Sigmod, VLDB, as well as ICD as a top tier conference for database. If you're working on data mining, we have KDD, ICDM, SDM, the top tier conference for data mining. If you're working on the IR or the knowledge management, you can go to SIGIR, CRKM to find papers, as well as WW conference for papers on IR, information retrieval, as well as knowledge management. So these are the top tier conferences. The community recognize their reputations. Don't find a paper from unknown conference, because we have so many conferences in academia, and most of them they are not famous and nobody knows them. Only the papers published by the top tier conference they can receive lots of recognitions, and normally good papers will be published by the top tier conferences. So please find a paper from a top tier conference instead for your implementation project. And if you have problems for finding such kinds of papers, I can show you with some examples, right? For example, if I plan to find a paper published by a top-tier conference like ICD, If you remember, the ICD is the International Conference on Data Engineering. It's a very good conference about database systems. Now, we have the ICD conference in every year. So, for example, if we plan to find the latest conference papers published in the last year, 2020, and we can type in 2020, then we can further type accepted papers. It will return a list of papers which are published and accepted by the conference ICD in 2020. And we can search in Google. Normally, all such conferences will provide this kind of list for you, so you can know which kind of papers they are accepted by the top tier conferences. Like here, we show the accepted research papers by the ICD conference in 2020. And so there are all the 4 papers. And we may also have some short papers, but I don't suggest you to read these short papers. Please implement your project based on 4 papers instead. Now here in this page, we show all the list of these accepted research papers published by the research track. And you can find the paper list, both the title as well as all the information, also the abstract and the information of the paper. You can check the title of the papers to see if you like them or not. Normally, if you can find some keywords or the phrases from the titles matching your interest, then you can further check the abstract to see if you like the paper or not. And if you confirm your interest in this paper, for example, the first paper, then you can copy the title of the paper, and we can further search this paper in Google. Alright. And then we can go to this IEEE Explore. It's a knowledge library of the papers. Because here in this page, we don't have a PDF of the paper listed or provided. We have to go to the IEEE website instead for downloading the PDF of the paper instead. And here we can see one PDF link for the paper. You can click this link to download the paper. However, I'm accessing this page from my home Wi-Fi, and if you go through the FSU, the campus VPN, then you will be able to download the PDF document of the paper successfully. And you can read the paper, the PDF document, either unit in like about 12 pages, and check carefully if you like this paper or not. And if you confirm you like this paper, then you can further check the contents as well as the method details discussed in this paper. Then you can implement the method proposed by this paper and also do the experiments on the real-world data sets provided by the authors. And normally for the papers published by the top-tier conference, you can always ask for the data sets for replicate their method results. Normally you can contact the authors for data sets as well as some necessary information about the paper if you plan to implement their methods. And the author will be happy to answer your questions and also resolve your concerns. So this is a way to find the papers which are published by the top-tier conferences. So please check back. If your paper you select is not published by the top-tier conference, you probably may have to reselect a new paper instead. So for the conferences, please check back the slides we showed before, right? For the name of conferences, please find the paper from this conference only for implementations. Okay, so this is about project. In this week, we'll plan to continue to talk about database fundamentals, and we plan to finish this section within these 2 weeks. And if you have any questions or have any concerns, please let me know. And you can also join me into my office hours, and we can have a discussion about any concerns or questions you may have in your mind. Okay, and let's come back to the slides, and we can continue to discuss about the fundamentals.